Right, hands up, admit it, folks. Who has made a spreadsheet when playing Football Manager in the past? I'm pretty sure we've all done it, and we felt like massive nerds for doing it as well, didn't we? Well, you ain't seen nothing yet, boys and girls. In this video, I chat with Jamie, aka Squirrel Plays, who you've probably seen on your YouTube recommended page because he has exploded off the back of writing Python computer code to basically assess his squad, do his transfers. It makes the spreadsheets for him. It's incredible software. It does some ridiculous things in Football Manager that I didn't know were possible. And we're going to learn all about it now. So here is the man himself, Jamie / Squirrel Plays, who has done this Python code. Jamie, you probably understand this a lot more than I do. I say probably, you definitely do. Do you want to just briefly explain what it is you've actually done? Because I think there'll be a lot of people who are like, you've done what?
Yeah, no, sure. Thanks, Kev. Thanks for having me on. Look, I think what it is, it's simple in a way. It's about reducing FM players down to one number, and that number is how well they fit your tactic, a specific role in your tactic. And so I think you end up with a tool that you can use to rank players, benchmark players against each other. Is my club good enough for this league? What sort of player level do I need to get into this league, and things like that.
Yeah, and you can use that to both assess your current squad and then also use it as a way to find potential superstars to bring into your team. Find the little bargains, can't you?
Exactly. So is a player that you're looking at signing a real improvement or not is one thing you can do. And another thing is if you've got 200 players and you're trying to reduce it to the 5 or 10 you should look at, it's a quick way of doing that.
Have you, because obviously you've used this in your own saves, you've made loads of videos about this, you should all go and check out Jamie's YouTube channel. I'll link to that down below. But have you found any absolute gems of players that you never would have heard on otherwise?
So I get quite good at reading the rules of leagues. So, one of the things that you should do is read the rules immediately, particularly in your less mainstream leagues, and you start looking for players. At the moment, for example, I'm in Japanese Division 3, and it turns out that Indonesian and Thailand players don't count as foreign in Japanese Division 3. You can only have 4 real foreigners, and Indonesian players are a bit cheaper than Japanese Division 3 players, for example. So you can start doing things like that.
So the nerds are going to love this. This is madness. Japanese third tier. This is so far out of my comfort zone.
But the other thing is, you can also say, well, okay, I'm in the Premier League and I've just been promoted. Okay, is this player good enough to play in the Premier League or not? And you can try to put a number around that, because if you go and spend 15 million on a player who isn't quite good enough to play in the Premier League, and that's all your resources, and obviously you shouldn't be doing that. So that's another. It's the same idea, but a slightly different application.
Yeah, so it's basically taking the attributes that are already in Football Manager, pulling them out, and then doing calculations on them to work out who's good for what positions.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of panning for gold. The thing is, I mean, for someone with your level of FM experience, once you get to the 5 guys at the top of the list, you're going to look at the 5 guys and have more to say about it than any computer list is going to. And if the list tells you this guy's 13.1 and this guy's 13.3, that's not going to tell you that much because you know so much about it already. But if it tells you this guy's 13 and this guy's 12, then at least it's cut off a bunch of guys and gets you to a short list you can be looking at. I think that, by the way, I think that's what real football clubs are doing. I think they take a big list of people and then reduce it down to 5 or 10, and then people really have a look at that 5 or 10, and that's kind of the way I play FM.
Getting a little bit more specific, I guess. One of the first, if you say you're starting a new save and you want to play using this software, which, by the way, the software is all available to download off of Jamie's YouTube channel, so you should go and check that out and grab the code and have a play around with it yourself. But the first thing that I guess you're going to do with it when you've got it all downloaded is use it to assess the squad that you've already got. So how does that process work? What are we doing there?
Yeah, sure. So once you've got the code on your computer and you run the code, you'll end up with your squad, but then you'll have the roles in your tactic in a table, and then your squad, and then basically a number for each player for each role. So then you can say, okay, sort it by the role. In my squad, who's the best player in the squad at being my left wing back? Who's the best player in the squad at being the right back, and so on. And that, maybe it won't surprise you, maybe it will. And it can help you identify gaps. It can help you identify players that you might even consider playing in different positions. And it just sort of gives you a level and then you can sort of do your squad building from there.
So, of course, I've got to test this out. So I started a new save with Sheffield United, and in order to pull my team out and assess them, firstly, you have to put one of Jamie's custom filters on, the all attributes filter, which for me as a non-attribute guy, that's utterly hideous. But from there, you just select all of them, then click on the screen, and then Control P, and you need to export that as a web page. I've set up a folder on my desktop that I can, if I can find my desktop. How do you use a computer, boys and girls? So I've set up a folder on my desktop somewhere. There we go, called FM Data, that I can then save that file into. It doesn't matter what the file name is because the software magically reads the most recent file that has been saved. And then we run the code and the magic is done. So we now have the code ready to run. Don't be too alarmed by all of this. There are full tutorials how to do this on Jamie's YouTube channel. It's not as complicated as it looks, but you basically just load the code up and then run it. And then the magic happens. And specifically, here is the magic in that FM data folder on my desktop again. So that's the file I saved. This is the one that the software has produced for me. And we now have my Sheffield United squad. They're all in there and we can sort them according to positions. At the moment, it's limited to the positions that are set up in Jamie's tactic, because this is a slightly earlier version of the code. There are newer versions on his website now where you can do this for any position. But we can see from here, our best goalkeeper is Wes Foderingham. Our best fullback, we've got Luke Thomas on the left, George Baldock on the right, Max Lowe on the left is almost there as well. So we've got a 13.5, a 13.5, a 13.4. So marginal differences between who are the best ones. And at centre back, our best one is my buddy Anal as a 13.6. Then we've got John Egan as a 13.1, Austin Trusty as a 12.9. And we do start to drop off a little bit from there. Our central midfielders are Segundo Volante. Our best one is Tom Davies at 13.8. Interesting to see here, probably our first maybe unexpected piece of information. Our second best midfielder is George Baldock, who's also our best right wing back. So you've then got the potential to maybe retrain him into that position. At 30 years old, maybe you wouldn't. But if he was 19 and showing up as a really good central midfielder, there'd be a strong argument for changing his position because he suits the other one so well. And then we've got our best striker as Cameron Archer, Ryan Brewster, and then not as much quality beyond then. And you can use that to pick your team. And also, of course, identify where you might need a little bit more quality. So maybe at centre-back, if we're going to play a back three, we drop off a little bit. Maybe we need another centre-back who's in the 13s or even higher maybe. At this stage, because we're still quite early days in all this, aren't we? So at this stage, there's a limited number of positions, limited number of tactics you can use with this. Is that right?
That's right. So at the moment, when I sort of first put something on YouTube about this, there was just a tactic and there were just 5 roles in the tactic. And it was deliberately kept very simple. So there were not loads and loads of things going on at once. I have actually now released code for each and all of the 85 roles in Football Manager. So if you want to put your own tactic in it, every single role is scored. Every single role has got a sort of view. It's a view. I'm not saying it's the perfect view on which attributes matter for that role. So, for example, if you tell a system, I want a false 9, it's going to give you Leo Messi. And if you tell a system you want a target forward, it's going to give you Olivier Giroud. And if you're in Bundesliga 2 and you ask for those 2 roles, you're going to get the closest thing you can get to Leo Messi or the closest thing you can get to Olivier Giroud. So if you want to have your own, the video that I sort of first put on YouTube didn't do this because this is my system. This is an entire front to back thing that I know works and I use in my own saves. But now it's sort of adapted out much more broadly. If you want to do any role, it can do it now. But that's the most recent thing that I'm sort of gradually building it as time goes on.
Once you've worked out who your players are, maybe where you've got the holes in your squad, you can then use the code again to start looking at, like you've mentioned there, recruiting new players. So is it smart enough to only recommend players that might be able to sign for you, or is that something you can manage some other way? Or
all it does at the moment is it ranks the players you run the code over. So you have to go through a process of telling the computer which players you want it to assess. So you might, for example, in your player search screen or your shortlist, click, the slightly interested thing. So then it's only players that that, according to your staff, are players you could potentially sign. So you might do that. If you do that, then you've got a list of players that you think are interested. So one of the things I'll do as I approach a transfer deadline is I might do that 3 or 4 times, because as you know, as you get close to the deadline, more players might want to sign for you. So you can sort of keep an eye, and gradually you might see a guy pop up near the top of the list, 8 hours before the deadline or whatever, and then you go from there.
So let's try out some player recruitment then. We do have to go to the forbidden screen for this one. You know how much I hate using the player search screen, but we do have another specific filter view. I use this screen so infrequently, I don't even know what you'd call it, but there you go, player search, all attributes. So we've got, as you can imagine, a player search screen that has all the attributes on. And then there's also a number of filters that Jamie's created as well. So depending on the position you want, again, we've just got those original 5 in this version. So let's say we decide we want another centre-back. We can use the centre-back filter, and then it applies filters to just show us centre-backs. And then we can look at, we don't want the ones that want to come in on loan. We want the ones who are interested to sign for us permanently. And then it's very much a case of just selecting all of these, and then once again, Control P, get that out as a web page, and then we handle that in the software again. And then once we've run it, we once again are left with this big old list of players, which, I mean, this is everyone who came up on that player search result as centre-backs who were interested in us. If we sort them according to best centre-back, you can see that the best one, 13.8, Sebastian Bornau off of Wolfsburg, who's got a transfer value of £4 million, so well within our budget. So we can then jump back into Football Manager, find that guy, there he is, Sebastian Bornau, and buy him. He's available for £4 million. Let's have a chat with his agent. There you go. We can get him for £4 million. So let's go buy him. And we know from when we assessed the squad before that that guy is an upgrade on the centre-backs that we've got at the club at the moment. So by bringing him in, we're improving our squad, and you just rinse and repeat that for the players that you need. Obviously, you, as Jamie suggested in the chat I had with him, you can put a little bit more thought into it. So maybe identify your best 4 or 5 and then assess them in game. For example, Bornau, he might have looked fantastic on paper, but if he was 5'9", I'm probably not deciding him to play centre back, for example. Or if he was £30 million, I might not want to sign him, but he's 6'3", he's only 24, he's a full international, and he's a bargain. It just seems like an absolute no-brainer to bring that guy into Sheffield United. You have to make sure you've not got attribute masking on for this to work.
Yeah, exactly. So you need all the players fully scouted. So if you've got an attribute range, it doesn't work. So people are sort of thinking about that at the moment. I probably will find I develop that, but at the moment, it's simply just excluding players the way you don't have them fully scouted. So the way I've always played FM has been basically to have all the attributes open to me. It's just been the way I've always played. If you don't play like that, what you'll need to do is get as extensive a scouting as you can, go and find as many players as you can, and then run the code over the players you know about that are fully scouted.
How much success have you actually had with it, using it in game? Is it working? Are you ruining the game for everybody?
There's a sort of responsibility in using it, because it's not quite as what I wouldn't want to do is kill the immersion of the game, trying to make the game more fun. There are different views on what realistic means. I think if you were working in Brighton or Brentford at the moment, you'd have a lot of data on the world's football players, and they sort of work like that. And I find that really interesting. What I don't want to be doing is just download the editor and find out the current ability and potential ability of all the players in the game. For me, that's a step too far. So what I've been trying to do is do something that isn't that, but at the same time is sort of data driven and quantitative, and helps me rank and benchmark players in the game. So this is my attempt to sort of find a sweet spot which enhances the game, makes it more fun, makes it more immersive, without taking it too far and just making it too easy or boring. Because it's not, for me, it stops being a simulation if you just know a player's current ability is 165 or whatever. I mean, I don't find that interesting. Not saying there's anything wrong with it, but that's
it's also not necessarily that useful, because if they could have ability like that, but if they don't fit the role you want to use them in or the tactic that you're using, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
Anyway.
One of the most satisfying things I found playing a game like this is, when you find that player that exactly fits and isn't even that good, but it works. I quite enjoy that.
How long have you been working on this? Is this something that you've come up with relatively recently, or is it something that you've been beavering away at for years?
No, not that. So I rediscovered FM in the lockdown. And then I was probably, so when's that, end of 2020, and then there was a year or so of it being a bunch of Excel spreadsheets. There was a period of just playing the game, stock as the game is, and then there was a period of spreadsheets. And then I basically got really, frankly, there was a time where I just got super busy in my professional life. And I realized if I was going to want to play FM in an immersive way, I was going to need to find some way of making the player recruitment part of FM take up less time. The bit where you're spending your evening going through the Guatemalan under 18s and all that sort of stuff. It was like I need to find a way to give myself the option to reduce the time I'm spending doing that while still playing FM the way I want to play the game. So one of the ways you can use it is let's say, for example, you want to find out who the top 50 new gens in the world are, and you don't want to wait for that screen to tell you. You can use this, for example. And so, I just wanted to sort of build something that was a spreadsheet won't be able to easily look at 1,000 players at once, whereas this will. So I had a little bit of skill in this area, and I figured, why don't I see if I can apply it? And then once I had the idea, the bit where you actually developed the coding was a relatively straightforward bit. It's actually once I figured out you could pull data out of the game in the way that you can.
I mean, you have no idea how jealous I am that you thought of it, bearing in mind my degree is computer science, and I used to be a computer science teacher. I used to teach Python to people. It's like, why have I not thought of doing this?
I mean, it's a really simple point, but once I realized that in either the player search screen in the shortlist screen, or the squad screen, you can just hit Control A and select all the players, Control P and hit go, and you get what you want. It's like, well, hang on a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I was using that screen 25, 30 years ago. So we'd print them off and take them into the playground at school, and we'd like have our. So yeah, I think I needed to step away and look at it with fresh eyes at some point to have an idea like this. I've been too involved and just never really thought outside the box. I'm furious with myself. So. Is this it in its finished form? Where next? What's the grand plan?
Two directions. First one, and it should be coming in short order, hopefully within the next week or so. Obviously, at the moment, to use it, you need to be able to install the code and use code, and that's part of the fun for some people. But for some people, it makes it quite inaccessible. So, all being well, in the next week or so, I'll be releasing an app that basically means you take the player data out of FM, which is a couple of keystrokes, and then you hit a button in the app, and it will just give you the list. So that will help with, I've got a number of YouTube comments at the minute, which is people trying to get it installed and haven't been able to. So for those guys, that web app is coming in short order. So that's sort of one thing. And then the second thing I think is the game gives you, as well as the attributes, of course, give you a load of statistics, right? And I've never really explored that to the fullest. I know that there's some really good stuff out there and people who have looked at the stats and tried to sort of benchmark and all the rest of that and say, well, this is a good player if they've got this stats better than this level or whatever. All that can be automated too. You can put that into views in the game and sort of use all of that. I think in the fullness of time, I probably will do some of that. But for me, that's not quite as helpful because you do need really to have the league loaded for the stats to be useful. And so if you're trying to play a really immersive save with 90, 100,000 players in it, you're not going to have every single league loaded that those players are playing in. So that for me is priority two. Priority one is to get the web app out so that people have got that if they want to use it, and if they're interested in doing this, but without the and yes, that should be coming, all being well, fairly soon.
Excellent. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, the best place for people to keep up, not just with that stuff that's coming, but also to go deeper on all of this stuff, because you've got so many videos on actually using this in game. People need to be heading over to your YouTube channel, because I presume the web app and all that will be pushed from there as well when the time comes.
Yeah, I think so. So it's squirrel_plays, and if people want to keep an eye on it, obviously, then that's probably as good a place as any. And yeah, I mean, we'll just sort of see where I go with it, really.
Brilliant. Jamie, thank you very much for your time. I am going to very much enjoy continuing playing with this software. And yeah, good luck with all of the stuff going forward. Just if you ever have a really good idea like this again, Feel free to just fire it my way and let me have a go, because then I won't be quite so angry with myself.
Of course, mate.
And there we have it, boys and girls. Absolutely fascinating stuff. If you want to see me do more with this, then we're going to need 5,000 likes on the video. Let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see me do. But realistically, if you want to see more of this Python stuff, the best place to find that, and we mentioned it a few times throughout the video, is to head over to Jamie's channel, Squirrel Plays. I'll link it at the top of the description below. He has loads of videos on there about this stuff, and there's going to be more to come. And it sounds like, from the chat we've just had, some pretty exciting developments in this as well, for those of you who are maybe less nerdily inclined and don't want to follow the tutorial and mess around with the code. There is a solution for you coming as well. But if you enjoyed this video, if you want to see more of this kind of content, it's completely different to any video I've ever done on the channel before, but if you want to see more stuff like this, make sure you leave a thumbs up on the video. Let me know you enjoy it. Maybe use the comment section to suggest similar kinds of videos. Maybe someone else is doing something cool with Football Manager and we can have a chat with them. The comment section is your friend, boys and girls. But subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on if you're new. And thank you very much for watching.